Hey, what is going on, you guys? It's me, the Evil Frogman. Borderlands 4 has a lot of Grenade Ordnance. However, you might not be quite up to date on what is the best or worst ordnance to use. Well, this is just my opinion on what the best and worst ordnance in the game right now are. I want to say that I'm going to be ranking all of the ordnance based off of primarily how well they can boss. And the reason for this is because right now, Borderlands 4 has basically no endgame mobbing content. So because of that, I'm going to primarily rank these off of how they can boss, but we are also going to take into account how well they can mob and if they are utility or not. Because it doesn't really make sense for me to put something in D tier if it's not supposed to kill anything, you know what I mean? So that's how we're going to be ranking stuff today. And yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this and hope that it is really helpful to you. And also I'm going to be ranking from the perspective of an Aimman player. So by far, in my opinion, the worst grenade in Borderlands 4 has to be, without a shadow of a doubt, the Buoy grenade. This thing is genuinely terrible. Like, there is no use case for this grenade I have been able to find where it is good. It has barely any charges. It has barely any damage. For those of you who don't know how this thing works, it is basically a proximity mine, right? So the idea is you throw it, and it's a proximity mine, and if an enemy walks into it, it blows up. But the thing is, like, this is just so impractical, as you can see, because most enemies will back away from you. So you kind of have to, like, lead them around and hope that they hit it, and it is just fundamentally bad. I feel like Gearbox have a thing with grenades and, you know, class mods, whatever it may be in Borderlands, of just thinking that if they buff them a ton, it will fix the problem with them. You cannot fix the problem with this by just giving it damage. The problem with this is fundamental, and it's that it is impractical as hell. I mean, look, the radius for detection is also really bad. It's just all around a really, really bad grenade. And, you know, spoiler alert, of course, this is also going to apply to bossing as well. So, easily, by far, for me, the Buoy makes it into D tier. I don't have F tier on this tier list, but it is at the bottom of the barrel. It is by far the worst grenade the game has. Like, it is not even close. Okay, next up, in no particular order for the worst, we're going to talk about the Spinning Blade. This is also down there in D tier with the Buoy for being one of the worst ordnance in the game. The reason why is because this thing is just extremely impractical, and I'll show you what I mean. So basically, the idea of the Spinning Blade is that you chuck it at an enemy, and it's going to bounce back at you, and if you catch it, you get a free charge back, okay? So I throw it at that enemy, and if I catch it, I get the knife back, and I can throw it again. However, as you can see, if you miss, you don't get that charge back. And additionally, when you do throw the knife, in my testing at least, it looks like the direction it bounces back is completely random. Sometimes it will bounce off to the side, although not all the time, granted. Now, the Spinning Blade is really good for mobbing, but the problem is, a lot of the damage that you're seeing me deal with it is coming from Blackout on Aimman, not the Ordnance. It's not very strong. And also, if you just miss the blade, again, it's now just on cooldown. And at that point, you might as well just run any purple throwing knife because they're probably going to do a lot more for you. So for this reason, I'm going to put the Spinning Blade in D tier as well. I don't think that it's some kind of a grenade that you can't do anything with. I'm sure there are cool things you can do, but there's just so many better choices that I have no choice but to put it into the D tier. Okay, the next grenade I want to talk about is the Faulty Detonator. Now, I currently don't have one on me, but basically the way this works is that when you detonate the Faulty Detonator, you're going to create basically TDR orbs. They're called combo orbs in the game, I think, but it just makes TDR orbs. Now, to be honest, I cannot get this thing to do much for me, but I don't feel confident calling it bad because of that. Like, I don't want to say that this is really bad just because I haven't been able to do anything cool with it. I think there might be some tech with it. For that reason, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and put it in the B tier. I'd love to spend more time talking about this one, but I can't really wrap my head around it. So I'm going to put it in B tier and hope that someone can either make it S tier or make the decision for me that it will go into D tier. That's the only grenade on the list like this, but I did just want to mention it because the Faulty Detonator for me is just a really, really weird one. And it's one that I feel like maybe Rafa would benefit more from. But yeah, that's the Faulty Detonator. It's going in B tier. Okay, continuing on, we're going to talk about the grenade known as the UAV. Now, this one I actually feel kind of weird about. I think the UAV is a decent grenade. I really do. The problem with the UAV for me is that it is, once again, as you're going to see with a lot of grenades coming up, so just forewarning, it's a grenade that is really, really good for mobbing. But mobbing right now in Borderlands 4 is not hard, so the bar's in hell. And for bossing, it's just okay. But the biggest problem for me with the UAV is that it's just kind of inconsistent. It doesn't look like the tracking's too great on it. You can make it work though, and I'll show you what it does on my aim and build to Radix right here. Granted, a lot of this is probably going to be blackout damage, but overall, it's just pretty decent. So for that reason, I do feel confident in saying that the UAV is probably going to land itself, believe it or not, into... So for that reason, I do feel like the UAV earns the right to go into A tier. The reason I'm going to put this thing in A tier is because there's a lot of potential here and I haven't gotten all of the rolls with it, but so far I can do pretty nice things with it on my aim and build, which isn't even really geared towards using grenades, it's more for the MIRV launchers, but it's still a very strong build and it makes this grenade very strong. Also, I have to put this in A tier. Give the UAV a try. It's honestly not too bad. The next grenade we're going to talk about, I don't have gameplay of this thing, but you've probably used it yourself. It's the transmitter. The transmitter is, believe it or not, actually decent. If you've not seen this, it's because it drops from the Gilded Glory pack only, so you can't even get this thing at level 50. For that reason alone, I have to put it into D tier. It basically throws out a drone that shoots enemies. It's like a Skully 0.5, and it's actually pretty decent. I think if you could get this to level 50, it would be a lot better, but you can't. I have to put this into D tier. If you have used the transmitter, let me know what you think about it though. Okay, the next grenade is the Swarm. This drops from Sydney Pointy Legs, and the idea of this is that it's basically just supposed to make a bunch of MIRVs that keep homing in on the target over and over and over again. And to be honest, as far as swarming grenades go, it's not even a scarecrow in its own field. It's just like really bad. I have not been able to get this thing to do very good for me in mobbing or bossing. Now, this isn't to say that it can't be good in those situations, it's just not done much for me. Also, it being non-elemental really hurts it in my opinion. There's no elemental rolls. It's just not very good. I honestly think that the Chaumurky completely puts it to shame, and we'll talk about that in a second. But for that reason, I have to say that the Swarm for me is going to land in C tier. I'm not saying that you can't do anything good with it. I just haven't been able to myself yet. Maybe there's potential there, just not for me personally. Okay, next up we have the Recursive Grenade. The Recursive Grenade is extremely, extremely bad in my eyes. Now, I'm going to explain why. The whole gimmick of this grenade is that you throw it at an enemy, and what happens is it pings back and forth between enemies. So it's supposed to just like do recursive damage between the enemies, right? Like it's going to hit one, then bounce to the other. Okay, so I'll show you how it works. I'm going to hit this enemy with it, or at least try to. Okay, there we go. It's going to hit this guy. It's going to blow up, and then when it blows up, it's going to hit that guy, and then it's going to blow up and go back to that enemy, and so on and so forth. Now, aside from this thing just not having really good damage, the biggest problem that I have found with the Recursive is that it can break entirely on single targets. On Radix, for example, I have been unable to get this thing to do anything more than one explosion, so it doesn't even look like the amount of explosions it deals will still apply to a single target enemy. And that just makes it completely useless for me. It is going up there into D tier, because even if this was a mobbing situation, there's just so many better grenades you can go for. I really, really think the Recursive is pretty bad, to be honest. Okay, while we're in the mobbing sections, I want to talk about the Chaumurky. Now, the Chaumurky is a grenade which is designed to basically home infinitely until your charge is back, right? So I have to say, I really like this grenade. I reference it a lot as the Bumblebee because it just keeps stinging things, right? It just walks around and just endlessly stings enemies in the arena, and I really, really like it. Unironically, I think it's pretty cool. When it kills one enemy, it's going to go straight to the next enemy, and it's going to continue finding enemies and just stinging them. And I really, really do like that. I think fundamentally, it is a very, very nice mechanic for a grenade. and I do think it lacks in damage a little bit, but overall that can be fixed because the actual effect is good. I do like the effect. But easily one of the larger use cases for the Chaumurky is that it is also just a very, very good bossing grenade for the same exact reason. In mobbing, it's going to keep stinging enemies until it no longer can, and it's going to do the exact same against a boss. I'll show you what it does on my Aimon build versus Radix, which, by the way, you can find this Aimon build in the description down below. But I'll show you that it just does the same thing. It's going to keep stinging the boss over and over and over again, and it just does a very decent amount of damage. Now, I haven't been able to get an extra charge on my one. If you can, let me know in the comment section down below, because I would really, really like that, because it is just solid overall. So for that reason, I really do feel like it's only fair to put the Chaumurky grenade all the way up into A tier. I really, really do like it, and I think if they buffed it a little bit, it could probably even go up into S tier. It's a very, very good grenade. Okay, so the next grenade we're going to talk about is known as the Disco. Now, if you haven't seen this, it's actually pretty cool. It is supposed to emulate a disco ball, and to be honest, it does a pretty good job at that. However, this grenade does not home in on enemies at all. It's just supposed to do dot damage as it travels through, and you might think that sounds very, very good, but in my testing, it's actually the exact opposite. I haven't been able to get this thing to do very good in mobbing, and I definitely have not been able to get it to do good in mobbing. The Disco is just a very, very bad grenade in my testing. It's not really inconsistent, it's just not very good, and that's about as far as it goes, to be honest, because it doesn't like stop when it hits an enemy and then just continuously damage them. It's just a very finicky grenade to use, and not one that I enjoy using at all, because it just kind of sucks, to be honest. So for that reason, sadly, I have to put the Disco up in D tier as well. It's just not worth using. It's another gimmick weapon, and I don't think you should consider wasting your time with it, to be honest. Uh-oh, not the Skully. Not the Skully. Okay, so look, let's talk about the Skully. So when Gearbox introduced this, I think a lot of people thought it was going to be the gas core, but what the Skully actually was just a homing skull that shoots enemies. It's basically just a power crept transmitter from the Gear of Glory pack. Now, the Skully, when it was first released, was bugged because it wasn't properly getting level scaling, but in a recent hotfix, Gearbox actually fixed this. So how good is the Skully now? Well, spoiler alert, not very. This grenade at best is pretty damn good for mobbing, but again, the bar is in hell. But as far as bossing comes, there is just many, many more grenades that we're going to go over that will just benefit you more. Also, this being a seasonal item, and at the time of recording this video, Gearbox not communicating if you're even going to be able to get it past the Halloween event, don't waste your time with the Skully. I really, really don't think it is worth at all, but if you are doing mobbing, I will meet you halfway and say that overall, the Skully is not that bad. Now, I don't actually have it in my little tier list here, but I'm going to say that the Skully is C tier because it is decent for mobbing, but it is absolutely D tier when it comes to bossing, so don't waste your time on the Skully in that regard. Okay, the next grenade that we are going to talk about is the Waterfall. So the Waterfall is basically the porcelain pipe bomb from Borderlands 3. And because of this, you probably know where I'm going to be going here with my thoughts on the grenade. It is pretty damn good. It's not by any means the best grenade in the game, but it definitely, in my opinion, probably deserves to be in the top 5 conversation. It's just overall a very, very good grenade. Now, unfortunately, it does drop from Bio Bulkhead, which isn't fun to farm, but it is a very, very good grenade. It's good for mobbing, as you can see. It's just overall very, very solid, and for bossing, I will show you what it does to Radix. Okay, so here is what the Waterfall looks like against Radix on my Aimon build. Again, if you want this Aimon build, you can find it linked in the description down below. It's very, very powerful, but as you can see, the Waterfall is just a pretty good grenade all around. It's good for mobbing, it's good for bossing. That is just a lot of damage to do to a Vault Guardian. So for that reason, I really do think that it's only fair that the Waterfall gets placed up into S tier. I think this is the first S tier of the video. I really think as far as grenades go in Borderlands 4, the Waterfall is amongst some of the best, but we're not done glazing. We have so many more to go, so let's continue on. Following up the Waterfall, we have the Blockbuster. This drops from Violecta. To be honest, this feels a little cheap because it just kind of feels like it mimics the Waterfall. It's just kind of like a worse Waterfall, but not in a really bad way. Like, it's still a decent grenade, and it's definitely not anything lower than A tier. It's very, very good. It's good for bossing, and it's good for mobbing as well. And again, I'm going to show you what this does to Radix also. It just splits into MIRVs when it explodes, and it's very good. The biggest weakness this has is probably that it, you know, just has trouble staying inside the boss's hitbox because they are MIRV grenades. But if you can get it to stay in there, it's just a very solid grenade. And I'll show you what it does in mobbing here really quickly. Also, I don't have any of my buffs procced at the moment, but this is what the Blockbuster does in mobbing, even though I just horribly missed that second one right there. It's also just a very, very good grenade for mobbing as well. Again, is it better than the Waterfall? To be honest, I would have to let you guys be the judge of that. For now, what I'm going to do is just meet it halfway and say that it is just about on the same level. I'm going to say it's also an S tier grenade next to the Waterfall. Okay, so the Jelly is one of the more well-known grenades in Borderlands 4. It dropped from Splash Zone, or still does drop from Splash Zone, and so of course a lot of people got their hands on it, but how does it hold up in the big 2025? I mean, which isn't really a big point. I mean, the game came out in 2025, but nonetheless, the Jelly is a solid grenade, but I think it's solid for mobbing, not so much bossing. Now, unironically, I think that one of the Jelly's biggest pluses is also its biggest downside, which is that it ricochets when it hits the surface, and this can either be really good for you, or it can be really bad for you. In my case, it's more often than not just very annoying, but I'm kind of a little bit biased to the Jelly because while it is slightly inconsistent with what it does and pretty annoying in the bouncing around that it does as well, I do actually think that because of how early you can get it, I have to put it into A tier. Now, if we were talking about, well, I don't really want it early epic, I just want a good grenade, I'm going to put it into B tier. But because of how early you can get the Jelly, it kind of makes it a must get because it's a solid ordnance. I'm going to put it into the A tier purely off of that. But if we weren't taking that into account, yes, it would be a B tier grenade for me. Okay, so the next ordnance I want to talk about is the Fuse. Now, I don't actually think this thing has a unique effect. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's literally just supposed to have 2 augments on it. It would really help if Gearbox would explain what it does on the card, but I don't actually think it has a unique effect, so just take this with a grain of salt because I could be completely misranking this here off of just a misunderstanding of the grenade, but I'm pretty sure I've had a bunch of these. It doesn't look like they actually have any kind of real effect. They're just a legendary grenade, and I really hope I'm not getting that. I'm probably getting that wrong. Either way, it may delight you to know that I actually really like the Fuse. I think it shines in mobbing like most grenades are going to naturally, but it is also very good for bossing as well, as I'm going to show you in just a second here. I don't think that this deserves to be in S tier by any means. I honestly lean more towards putting this into high B, low A, but of course I don't really have that option with my tier list, so it's kind of tough for me to just, you know, make my mind up on where I want to put it. You know what, I tell you what, we're going to do a little audience involvement here. I'm going to show you what it does with my build against Radix, and you are going to tell me where you believe it should sit, B or A. Okay, so here is the Fuse going up against Radix. Let's see just how good it is. And yeah, you guys let me know where you think this should go on the tier list. Overall, I think it's pretty damn good. I don't really know if it needs to go into A tier, so I'm going to make the hesitant decision to put it into B tier. And again, you guys tell me if I'm right or wrong there. I think I'm probably just in the middle. Alright, let's talk next about the Buzzaxe. Now, Buzzaxe doesn't really have a special effect, it's just kinda a throwing knife. But the biggest thing for me with the Buzzaxe is that it doesn't actually deal melee damage, and I don't understand why, because it is quite literally a Buzzaxe. Now, what I will say about the Buzzaxe, to be nice to it, is that it does deal fairly decent damage for mobbing, but it doesn't deal melee damage, which gives it far less use cases. And also for bossing, it just makes it pretty bad, to be honest. A lot of the times when I hit a boss with the Buzzaxe, I find myself just going, oh, that was my blackout damage or tail of the comet. But very rarely is it ever the damage of the Buzzaxe. So for that reason, sadly, I'm going to put the Buzzaxe into C tier. I think there's potential here, but they need to make this thing deal melee damage for that potential to really shine. Okay, now let's talk about utility. We are going to talk about the Sho Kunai. This is supposed to give you movement speed for each consecutive hit of the grenade, up to 70% bonus movement speed. Now, this is an interesting one to rank because obviously it's really not supposed to kill anything at all. And so we're ranking it purely off of its utility, and I have to say, for the utility, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It gives you movement speed, which is very nice. Now, sadly, I don't have all of my charges, but overall, the Sho Kunai is just solid. It does exactly what it is supposed to do, and if you want to get extra movement speed out of your build, then the Sho Kunai is good. But the only problem with the Sho Kunai, in my opinion, is that it feels like it's a reference to Zero from BL2, but the animation is just a standard throwing knife. Really just kind of sucks in that regard, to be honest, but that's just a nitpick more than anything. I will say, for legitimate criticism of this ordnance, it is a lot of prep to get that movement speed, and I don't mean it's a lot of effort. I mean, all you really have to do is press a button, but you have to do that 7 times, and I feel like for a lot of people that's just too much work, and when they could just invest in other places to get their movement speed. So this is going to depend on who you are as a player, of course. For me, I'm going to say that the Sho Kunai is A tier, but I can't put it into S tier because it's just a little too much work to get up to that 70%. So I'm going to put it into A tier. And that brings us into the last 2 ordnance of the video, and I think if you're familiar with Borderlands 4 and know what you're doing in this game, you're going to know where I'm going to rank these. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the Slippy. This is just the fish slap from Borderlands 3, it's back in Borderlands 4, and it is a melee damage grenade. Now, if you're running a melee build, I will tell you straight up, this is your only option you should be running. It is unbelievably strong, so much so that I'm going to show you that even though I'm not doing a melee build, this is what my ordnance damage build does with a Slippy. It just completely makes every enemy disappear. And it's not just enemies as well, it's also bosses. And I'm going to show you what it does to Radix here in a second. But in short, the Slippy is just a top 3 pick in the game. Of course, if you're not doing a melee build, you're probably not going to want this. It's going to be D tier for you. But if you are doing any ordnance damage or you're doing melee damage, if you're not considering this grenade, you're kind of throwing, I'd say probably the worst part about the Slippy is that you have to farm Shadow Pelt to get it or do fishing, and that really sucks. It's easily in the top 3 for me. But of course, we're not doing number ranking, we're just doing tiers. So, of course, you know where I'm going to put this. This is an S tier grenade. It is not even close, it's just that good. The Slippy is by far an S tier grenade. Let's give it its rightful throne up here. Because that's where it deserves to sit. Okay, so then there was one, we're at the final grenade of the video. If you're still watching, by the way, shout out to you. The final grenade is the Firepot. If you are all familiar with this grenade, I think you know exactly where this thing's going to rank. I'm not going to show you what it does in mobbing, because after you see the bossing ability of this thing, you're going to know enough about it. But I will spoil it for you, this is an S tier grenade, and it's the perfect way to end off the video. The Firepot shoots out Torg stickies at enemies, and you can even detonate them by switching modes on your weapon if you have one out. And I have to say, it is, in my opinion, if you're not doing any melee, the strongest option right now for Ordnance. It is just supremely strong. I even missed a few stickies there, but look at the damage this thing deals, even with not all of my stickies hit. It is enough to kill Radix. This thing is absolutely disgusting. And one of the biggest things that makes it so disgusting is that the Firepot gets bonuses from weapon damage. We've been over this before, but basically, because it shoots a Torgue sticky, it counts as it being weapon damage. Now, the evil gearbox might go and nerf this in the future. I don't know. They might go and fix that and make it deal, you know, a different kind of projectile damage. They might just make it flat out ordnance damage across the board. But the Firepot is still, regardless, very, very, very strong. And I'll give you a little use tip for this if you are going to pick one up. You don't just want to instantly detonate your stickies, because you do get that multiplier depending on how many stickies you have active on a target. So the way to use the Firepot is chuck it, let it go after enemies, and let it just attach all of its stickies first, and then swap weapon modes on a weapon like a Malawan or something with an underbarrel, and just enjoy watching stuff get deleted. Now, there is some criticism to the Firepot that I've seen from people saying that it is too inconsistent and it's not worth your time because of that, but to be honest, I just utterly disagree. While yes, it can be frustrating to get this thing to work, when it does land, it hits extremely hard, and I'm not going to say that it, you know, when it does land, but it only lands 10% of the time, it lands pretty damn consistently in my use case. Now, there are some times where, yes, I will miss a bunch of the stickies, but it does so much damage that it really doesn't even matter. So, of course, for that reason, the Firepot has to go up into S tier. Without a doubt, this thing is so damn good. It's really, really strong. So to end off the video, I'm going to show you what this grenade does to Phase 2 Timekeeper, who has over 10 million HP. It's just a very, very good grenade. You really can't go wrong with it, especially if you're doing a gun build. It's also going to benefit you there as well. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like on it and a comment. And also, if you're not already subbed to the channel, please go ahead and do that as well. And thank you for watching the tier list. If you want a link to the build I'm using, I'll leave it in the description down below. And guys, I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll check you later.